You know what I mean? That's a real ego trip. And that's why, like, to me, when you get involved with these groups, you know, you're seeing people who are on that ego trip dominating the student vegan society or dominating the student animal rights group, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's so petty. It's so pathetic to me. It's a side of human nature I don't want to deal with.
I don't know, girls who go to college want guys. You know? So I just don't ever think that would happen, you know? Just like picturing my own university friends, like, I just can't imagine any of them wanting to be with like a former, you know, I don't even know what his charges were, like he stole something or something. I can't imagine. Yeah. So I just, it is unfortunate that he dropped out of college, because like I think he has the potential to, like he used to, like you've talked about it before, but I watched his videos and he did used to do videos that were more substantial, right? Like not everything he said was stupid.
I know.
And right? And like
yes, I know. And this, but look, so I mean, I'll bring this back to you. I'll also say, like, he's not really the kind of character he plays. When your channel was brand new, you had like 5 videos up or something. He and I talked about you. I've mentioned that before. And he and I both said, like, wow, this is such a really positive thing for vegans on YouTube. And, you know, we were talking about the fact that you were intelligent. You actually had something to say. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we were just talking about this stuff. He never once said, like, you were hot. He never once said something. Like, the way he behaves on his channel, you think he's this caveman who has no other interests. We had this discussion about you that was just 100%, like, politics and why you were a positive contrast to other people's channels. So I just say, like, I know who he really is and I know what else he's capable of. And that makes it even more depressing to see what he pretends to be or what he's become. But he got sick of it himself, right? He just quit doing drama in a major way. So, you know, I mean, that's funny. I mean, all those people, they've all disappeared. Joe Vegan went crazy and quit. Vegan Cheetah lost his patience and quit. Martin Lewis got his channel deleted. You know, we don't know if he'll be back. But like all the people who are playing the drama game, one by one, they've actually dropped off the radar. So now I have nobody to gossip about my sex life, so I have to do it myself. I've got to go on.
You gotta stir the pot yourself, guys. You don't have anyone to do your dirty work for you.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking for just getting back to YouTube, I guess. I've been wanting to put out a video. I mean, I've been sick, so that's, I think on my video, I was like, yeah, I'll post like twice a week, and then I didn't post for 2 weeks. But I think what I want my next video to be, and I'm just kind of struggling with how to even frame it, because I don't know where my own head is at. Like, I've had a series of like experiences just in dealing with the university system regarding like the clubs. I forget, the University Student Council.
Okay.
And like the clubs. Like we've had, I won't go into the details because it's not relevant, but just like this conflict with one of our members, right?
So just to clarify, because the audience doesn't know. So did you have a vegan group, or did you have an animal rights group, or what was the group?
It was a vegan group.
Okay.
The focus was, we do some kind of like activism on campus. We're trying to get things labeled, like small things, like just trying to get vegan options labeled as vegan, trying to get more vegan options on campus. We do film screenings. But truthfully, the main purpose of the club is to be social. It's a social club mostly. And also to bring in like people who are curious about veganism. Like it helps teach people, right, who are already interested in veganism. But yeah, so we had this conflict with one of our members, and just the whole experience, I guess, you know, I could branch off into the whole thing. Like I could branch off into my YouTube video in so many different directions. Like I could bring it to like a commentary on political correctness. I personally think this person got too much favoritism because they have a visible disability, because anyone else, they would have been kicked out of the club, no problem. But you know, I could talk.
So, but just because people don't know, and I don't know either. But like, so this club, it's a vegan club on a campus. Like, about how many people in total were there, and what would a normal meeting be like? Did you meet at a restaurant, or did you meet in a room? Like, I'm sorry, that's boring, but like, because otherwise people can't really imagine like what you mean by a club.
Yeah. Basically, the exec team, we would meet once a week.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, to plan events, and there was about 10 of us this year. This year there was a lot. I actually have since left the club.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a bad experience, so I left. But yeah, we'd meet once a week, and then we would put on an event for all general members once a week. So usually it'd be like a restaurant outing or a potluck or bar night or a film screening, et cetera, et cetera.
So look, I do want to hear about that. I'm sincerely interested, both on a personal level and on a vegan politics level. But I just remind you, anything you say, if you want me to censor it, if you want me to not upload it, I can edit things out, anything, or I can turn off the recording right now. I mean, so it's not recorded in the first place. But I do really want to hear what happened. So I have my own negative experience of that kind to compare it to also. But no, okay.
Yeah, I guess like the whole event, it was like, oh my goodness, I haven't thought about it. Like, there's just so many layers to this. Hold on. Yeah. So basically, this guy got the rest of the vegan community outside of the university community, because we have an animal rights group that's not affiliated with the university, but we talk, right? So the two groups we talk. So we had like people telling us that we're a bunch of ableists, and we had a grown man, like 40 years old, like sending us threats via email and whatnot, because we were trying to kick someone off the exec team at our club for like, yeah. He was just he was very difficult to work with. So it was just not working. He needed to be kicked out of the club. And yeah, and like and everyone was telling us we're a bunch of ableists. And so we get to the university meeting, like with the actual like student council, right? And to deal with this conflict. And so the member in question is there. And firstly, the meeting starts off with, I don't have any speaking rights at this meeting because my executive position wasn't elected in. I just kind of signed up, whereas the other members, they were voted in, so they have speaking rights. So I wasn't even allowed to talk, which I thought was unfair. And I found that even my own members, they weren't on our side, like our own exec team members, they were just trying not to get into trouble with like the university student council. They weren't necessarily speaking up with what they knew to be right and knew to be true in that case. So I found that it was just almost like, it was like a betrayal. Like they weren't interested in helping the club. They were just interested in not creating a conflict with the university student council. And
just to clarify, because in Canadian universities, sometimes there's money involved. Was there money involved in the sense of like, was student council providing funding for the group? Was that part of the dynamic or no?
Not really, no. I know like oh man, so many layers to this. The member in question we were trying to kick out of the club, his mother was very involved in our group, which is very strange because we're a student group, and his mom was involved a lot. So she would donate a lot of money to our club. Right. Okay. Yeah. And so I guess that made him feel like he had a special position in the club because his mother would donate all this money. But it doesn't.
I totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah, and just so the basis for him getting kicked out of the club was the fact that he had turned the whole community out against us and was straight up lying, like slandering our club, and was what else did he do? Yeah,
I assume this is through Facebook and this kind of thing. I assume it's social media based slandering.
Yeah, just straight up lying, calling out, like telling people. It was just awful. Like one of the members involved, like on the exec team, like they themselves have a non-visible disability, and this person is being accused of being an ableist. It was so ridiculous, right? And yeah, so the fact that the USC was going so easy on this guy, anyone else, like he wasn't just slandering our club, he was slandering the University Student Council, the USC, right? Like any other person just lying about the USC and giving them such a bad name, like they would have been kicked out of the club, right? But it was so unfair, so not just, that I was like, if this is what it is, I don't want to deal with this. Like there's no reason for me to need to deal with this right now, so I quit.
So look, I just mentioned, like, okay, I'm now 38. I mean, back when I was at University of Victoria, I was 36. And we were talking before, like in some ways I'm a dominant personality, and like I dominate whatever room I'm sitting in, and people pay attention to me. And I'm not bragging. Like, I've talked about this on YouTube before. Like, I've never had an ego trip from that. That doesn't feel good to me. But I have experience doing that in a boardroom, in a business setting, where I'm sitting down and talking to executives and making a case. I have experience doing that in an academic context, where I'm giving an academic lecture to a group of professors or PhD students. But I also have experience doing that in Buddhism, in a religious context, where it's religious authority, religious power, religious ego trip. And if there was anything in me that got like ego gratification out of, being the center of attention, believe me, I would have stuck with the Buddhist religious leader thing. Because you know what it's like. If you know that, and you're a guy like me who talks a good game, I can improvise lectures on the meaning of life. No script, you know what I mean? You walk into the room, you look at the crowd, you make eye contact with people, the crowd goes silent, you know what I mean? You stand up there and you say, hey, here's the meaning of life, and here's what we're going to accomplish in the next 10 years in this Buddhist monastery or whatever. You know what I mean? That's a real ego trip. And that's why, like, to me, when you get involved with these groups, you're seeing people who are on that ego trip dominating the student vegan society or dominating the student animal rights group, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's so petty. It's so pathetic to me. And also for me, like that kind of role comes to me naturally. And it's both that I don't enjoy it, and it's also that I really believe in democratic process. And by democratic process, I don't mean this kind of bullshit you were just complaining about, like, oh, we have to take this piece of paper and give it to student council. But just that when you hold a meeting, that I'm not the only one talking, that I'm not implicitly, like, I'm not making up your decision for you, that you actually are making decisions in a way that reflects many voices in the room. So I just say, when I was in Victoria, there was a main vegan group, and they didn't even call themselves vegan, which I didn't like already. And then there was an attempt at having a student group within the campus. And for me, it was really funny because my main thing was, look, I'm 36 years old. I'm a student, but I'm not a normal age student. And I do not want to be the boss of this group. Like, I don't think it's, like, I can chat with people, like, to some extent, but where I did not want to play a controlling role, because I thought that the young people who were normal age for university students, they should be the ones, have, like, I could play some role or give some advice or talk to me, but I didn't, you know what I mean? And the irony was, my nemesis was this other guy who was exactly the same age as me. He was exactly the same age as me, and he was also divorced. So just by coincidence, he was also a 36-year-old divorced guy, and he was not a student. I was legitimately a university student. And he was fucking dominating and controlling the vegan student group on campus for no reason, just for his own ego or whatever. It's like you say, like, the moms or something come in. It's like, dude, you're not even a student here. Why are you here? Get the fuck out. Like, why are you trying to turn this into your farm club? No, I just meant he was not a creep. He was not trying to get with the university girls. That wasn't his motivation at all. But I remember other people wondered if it was. It's just like, dude, like, why are you even here? Like, that actually wasn't his motivation. But when you see these people where that ego motive, even when it's just a room of like 6 people or 8 people, that they want to control that room. It's a side of human nature I don't want to deal with.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. Like, this guy that you just described is very similar to the guy, like, I was dealing with. He was a bit younger, but he was still, like, older than the rest of us. And none of us really understood if he was a student or not. That was always, like, it would have been awkward to be like, so do you even, like, go to this school or what, right?
You got to ask.
Yeah, so we always just kind of, like, I think we did ask once or something, and he gave us really vague answers, so we were just like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, we were just like, why are you even here, and why is your mom so overly involved? And the thing is, he was one of the first members of the group, right? And so he did have this, like, the group, like, the club was his project, he found, I think, and, like, he just couldn't move on, right? I think he had to have ultimate control over everything. So, which is, like, one of the reasons why we wanted to, like, get him off the exec team, because he was impossible to work with. But yeah, it was definitely ego driven. Yeah. It was so abundantly clear. Yeah. And it was just like, dude, like, you're almost 30, like, you're not even going to this school. Like, what are you doing here? You know?
So I just saying I respect democracy. Democracy is based on the idea that everyone there is equal. But there also are inequalities. Like if you're the guy who does all the photocopying, if you do all the long hours of hard work, I do think your voice counts for more because you've committed the time. And it was the usual situation where Jordan and his girlfriend put a ton of time in to, making events happen. So I really did respect that. Like I really felt like his voice counted more than mine. But at that time already, I was a little bit famous on vegan YouTube, micro fame. And there were students who were like excited to meet me, like vegans, they were vegans or they were vegetarians who cared about ecology or whatever. Who were like, oh yeah, he's that guy they know from YouTube. Like they were interested to meet me. And the reality was, so Jordan, his adult group, his group that wasn't on the campus, the way he chaired a meeting was just that he would sit down and dictate. Like he would just sit there and he's not even aware of it. He would dictate from top to bottom what the group was doing. And it was so fucking pointless. It's just a waste of my time to be there. And like, so again, even stuff like to me is not about ego. Like, okay, how much time do you want to spend as a vegan on deer culling, and on horse-drawn carriages? For me, the answer is 0. Like there are a million, like I have 500 YouTube videos. There are so many issues in veganism I'm passionate about, and those two are not on the list. I do not want to and these guys were doing illegal shit. I do not want to go to jail for destroying a deer trap. Like the traps. The traps that they used to like trap the deer and then relocate them to the forest or whatever, because it's it's a government-owned property. Because you're so fucking pissed off about government deer policy. Like, oh my God. But like if you went to a meeting that was not debated, it was not debatable, there was no openness to just asking people like, hey, what are our priorities? What do we want to work on in the next 6 months or the next year? There was absolutely no openness. It was just either you sit down and you 100% submit and conform to this guy who's the self-appointed dictator of the group, or you get the fuck out and start your own vegan group, and that's it. Like, a lot of vegan groups are like that. It's depressing.
Yeah. He sounds very, very aggressive. I think there's someone. I think I mentioned him to you before. There's like a video clip where you're talking about. I don't even remember. There's footage from the Toronto March, and I said, "Hey, I know that guy. He's from where I live."
Right.
And I think and he's kind of like the person outside of our student group, like in the other group that everyone kind of looks up to, right? And he was actually one of the people, coincidentally, who sent us threatening emails. And he's the one who's leading the local animal rights group. And he sends threatening emails to 20-something-year-olds who are just running a student group, right? And so that's the level of aggression that I have here in my own city.
I know. And it's like, what are you trying to win? Like I really think with Jordan, he was always totally comfortable and relaxed talking to me one-on-one. I don't think he had any problem when we talked one-on-one. But when we were in that group setting, 6 people, 8 people, I think he was really deeply threatened by the fact that I was just a kind of charismatic, self-confident person who had a different approach to these things. And I know most left-wing people will laugh if you talk about like corporate governance or like a responsible corporation. But one of the main things you learn in a business setting is the type of democracy you have to have in a room with 6 or 8 people who are not all equal. Like somebody's the owner of the company and somebody's the, people with different ranks. But nevertheless, you have to have a meeting where the people at a lower rank really have the opportunity to report what was successful and what wasn't successful. Like even if it's 100% corporate, like learning to manage the personalities in a corporate meeting. And again, you're not all equal. Ultimately, somebody is the owner and somebody's the employee. But where like you can have a meeting where you say, hey guys, okay, so looking back at the last 3 months, what was really successful? What was a failure? Like what do you guys have to report? Where you're not steamrolling them. You're not forcing them to say everything was great when it wasn't. And then we say, okay, what are we going to do different in the next 3 months? That's really the kind of skill you need for a small vegan group. Even though, again, like Jordan, even though my experience with them is really negative, I recognize just because he does the photocopying and he puts in the hours, I feel like he is my boss. Like I feel like he does have a superior role to me because he and his girlfriend put in all these hours that I don't want to put in. The difference being, I was a student. I was a full-time university student. I didn't have that much time. I was really busy. I was busy with university. I was. But, if you got the time to put that in, I can recognize you're superior to me. But I've still got to have that process, whether you call it democratic or not, where I can say, look, this is not working for me. I feel this is a waste of time, whereas I feel this other thing is a really good use of time, and that kind of feedback. So, yeah. And the internet makes it worse because so many people are just used to screaming at each other on Facebook, and they're not used to holding a meeting and drawing out, really, really enabling people, even if they are in a subordinate position, to voice their concerns and have a conversation about how to improve operations,